Hello folks, it's been a long time since I've done a video. It's about time I get back with you. And today I'm working on a small project inside my greenhouse. This is the greenhouse. I have a lean-on structure. And I normally plant in this area of the greenhouse in winter. You can see some of my pictures, my older pictures and video on this. But today I'm adding my planting space inside the greenhouse, and I'm doing a little raised bed. So I'm going to walk you through the process of doing it and see how it is, easy it is. So far I basically just cut the pieces of wood. There they are. This is going to be measuring 6.5 in length and 1.5 in width. It's going to lean against the wall. I've dug out some of the hard soil on the top, and I'm going to fill it up with compost and good soil. So that'll be about 10 square feet of planting area. And here I have 8 by about another 1.5 feet, so that's about another 12 feet of area of planting area here. So I'll end up with about 22 square feet of planting area by the time it's done. As you can see in the back there, I have another bed against the wall, and I've been thinking about this idea. Here in Texas we have a lot of clay soil, and it expands and contracts with drought. Like for example, this year we stopped getting rain. The last rain we got was back in June, I think. I was complaining about too much rain in the earlier part of the year, and then we just stopped having rain. We haven't had a single drop of rain since mid-June. So what happens is that the soil expands and contracts, and your foundation problems, you start having foundation problems, and people use soaker hoses and all kinds of things to keep the foundation wet. Well, I thought that if I plant against my foundation, I always water that, and I'm adding about a foot of soil over the foundation, or the level of the foundation, and that should keep it moist and stable, the temperature around the house always. So that's what I try to do all around my foundation. I don't have any empty spaces except on the north side, which is a little cooler and it's always somewhat moist there. But on the south side, which is what you're looking at right now, I'm trying to fill all this side of the house with small little beds, so that the foundation also remains stable. And another thing that I'm trying to do eventually, I'm moving towards, I mentioned this in a previous video. You see this row of trees right here, right? So this is my design for my garden. I have trees all the way from the fence. They're 6 foot away from the fence, and they go all the way back there. So what's happening is that these trees are growing, and they start shading the beds, and it's getting a little, excuse all the mess here because I'm moving everything around, but it's getting a little difficult to walk around these beds here. So if I move through here, I'll be brushing up against this apple tree, and it's just a young apple tree. It'll get bigger. I'm brushing up against this tomato plant, so on and so forth. So in the end, my objective is to basically get rid of these big boxes here that I have here, minimize them, cut them back, and maybe leave them to about about this wide only. So just have about this much, and also have beds against the house, and that should be more than enough. In the long run, I want to go more towards a perennial type of garden that requires less maintenance, and sure have a few boxes to have some root crops and some Swiss chard and kales and leafy greens. But in the end, I really want my backyard to be more of a perennial with berries, apples, peaches, apricots, etc. So that's what I'm striving for. This has been a long project of mine. I've been at this for about 8 years, and I'm having to start to make some changes because these trees are getting bigger, and they're going to be shading out some plants. Another thing that I've noticed, that I've experimented, if you see these boxes here at the bottom, they're two boards. So they're basically two 10-inch boards or 12-inch boards. I forget what they are. And at some point I thought, well, maybe it's better to have double boards because it's easier to manage. You don't have to bend so much, so on and so forth. I have mixed feelings about this. If you have an irrigation system, which I don't, it probably will work great. But when you have loose soil like what I have here, I can dig my hand in here for maybe 4 or 5 inches, and I barely hit some humidity in the soil. This is not necessarily good for plants that are just young seedlings. They tend to dry out because water, well, has a lot of places to go. I'm sure the very bottom of this bed here it's very moist, but the roots are not here, they're up here on this side, so that creates a problem. So I'm starting to move towards smaller beds, you know, like 6-inch beds, and like this one here that I'm making, right? It's a 6-inch cedar board, and I'm digging 4 inches down. So basically I'm talking about 10 inches bed, a 10-inch bed, but it's on the soil. It retains more humidity that way. You have less of an evaporation issue with water, as opposed to a big bed like this, which has a lot of evaporation. Here I have another little cedar bed that I just put last fall, and here, so this is also a 6-inch board, I think. So I'm trying to keep it like that now. Here I have another one against the wall here. This one I just had some scrap wood left over and I made it. This is an 8-inch board, so it's still good. But I'm also considering maybe for next spring getting some shade cloth, because really the sun here in Texas, it is hot. So if I'm thinking if I put some shade cloth on this structure after I remove the plastic for the winter, and I just put some shade cloth, then the plants in here will do great. Because right now this wall is great for winter for the greenhouse because it captures a lot of heat, but in the summer it is quite hot. This wall is hot, and then it reflects it down into the plants, so it's not a very good place for the plants. I know the instructions behind most seed packets say full sun, but full sun here in Texas is not the same thing as full sun in New Hampshire or some other place of the country. So you got to take that into consideration. Anyway, folks, I'm gonna stop rambling, and I'll go back to building this raised bed. I'm gonna fill it with compost and good soil right now, nail it in place, and come and show you the finished product. Well, this is the final product of the small raised bed that I put into the greenhouse. As you can see, it's been mulched with a very coarse mulch to prevent weeds from coming out, and the bed is already filled with compost and some good soil at the top. That's where I'll be planting. And if you can see the pathway here, it's quite manageable. So I should plant something into this bed probably in the next coming days. As soon as I have a couple of small containers with some seeds. I'm waiting for them to sprout and put on some real leaves, and then I'll be transplanting them here. I may also just plant something directly into it. So we'll see how it works. Thanks for watching, and until next time. One thing that I wanted to mention about building raised beds is that well, you can get some real good cedar planks. These are 6 by 10, 6 by 12, and they normally retail for about $20. But if you see in the end, they have a purple mark, and this is at Home Depot. And the reason they have this purple mark is because they have some blemishes that you can see right there, which may not make them suitable for a patio or a deck, but for raised beds they're perfectly well. And these planks or these boards usually retail for about $17.99, $18, and when they have this purple spray on, they sell them to you at 70% off the original price. So I paid $5.40 for these cedar planks. Now cedar is very light, it's not heavy, but it's very rot resistant. And I know some people don't like to make a cedar beds because they say the cedar kills your vegetables and this and that. I think that's a bunch of baloney. I think cedar trees have I think allopathic qualities. When they are in the ground rooted, the roots and the leaves exude some kind of chemical that kills vegetation around them. It's just a basic way to eliminate competition around them. But once they have been milled and everything, I doubt that is the case. I have other raised beds that are made of cedar, and I've never had any problems with my growing vegetables in there. And they are very resistant, and especially since I'm putting them up against the wall, the foundation, and termites may be a problem, which I doubt, but just in case, I decided to put cedar instead of just regular pine, but primarily because it'll last a lot longer than pine. That's the main reason. Anyway, folks, it's not expensive to get into gardening. You just gotta do a little shop around, and do a few things on yourself. Another thing about the Home Depot is that even if you don't have a circular saw or anything like that, you can just go there and tell them to cut it for you. So you do your measurements and you tell them, I want this board to be 6, 2, and 2, and they'll do it right there for you for the same price. I think they start charging like 25 cents for every cut after 3, some amount like that, which is well worth it, because, well, if you don't have a circular saw, cutting these boards with a regular saw is just a pain in the rear. So might as well just tell them to cut them for you. It's more exact also. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time.